Good afternoon, everybody from the east, and good morning, everybody from the west. And thanks for taking the time to join us today for the Post-Secondary Climate Challenge annual event. So we announce the most energy efficient colleges in Ontario every year. We get coverage from beyond Ontario because a lot of the messages and the lessons learned are broadly applicable to higher education facilities everywhere. We see this year's event in 2024, where we're looking ahead to 2030 as the most momentous of these gatherings, of these annual presentations so far. We hope you'll agree, and we've got some core messaging that we think really applies to everybody, and that we need to press on with. So beginning with Ontario's top energy performing colleges, and today is all about planning. How do we use the data that arise from these kinds of analyses to help us plan for success on a go-forward basis? And if we could ask you to use the chat function only for technical issues, for problems you're having connecting or with sound or anything, use the Q&A, because we keep the Q&A after these events, and we will respond to some questions after the fact. We'll discuss with the panelists and move forward. But if you could use the Q&A option for questions, we'll monitor them throughout the session, and we'll pick them up at the right point in the proceedings today. But please use the Q&A document for comments, questions, criticisms, concerns, anything that comes to mind as you go through. It becomes part of the record. And as with all Climate Challenge Network events, we begin with a land acknowledgement. We're on the ancestral and unceded territory of a number of Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that share these lands with us. This session today is virtual, but I'm speaking from Toronto, which is the traditional homes of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River, who actually hold the treaty rights for the city of Toronto. It is our sincere wish that the work that we're doing, the work we're discussing, the ideas we're exploring with everybody today will contribute in a meaningful way to our common responsibility as stewards of the environment. A brief word about the program. The Post-Secondary Climate Challenge launched in 2020. And defined exactly as you read it here. It's driven by its members, and it's driven by data. It's all about collaboration. It's about the idea that some of these big challenges we have around energy and climate and decarbonization are too big for most of us to tackle individually, and there's a real case for collaboration and working together on these things. The Post-Secondary Climate Challenge is purely looking at the energy efficiency and greenhouse gas emissions from university and college campuses. That's our world, that's our mandate, that's what we do. As we work with different institutions, the intent is to share strategies aimed at energy emissions, utility cost reductions, again, heavily leaning on data, going deeper into interval data, monthly data, billing data, building automation system data, using data in every way that we can think of to help point to the right opportunities for improvements and verify the fact that things are working. We're a lot about networking. Today is essentially a networking session, bringing higher education facilities across North America with industry, government, utility partners to talk, explore, and discuss these things. And we're all about recognition. So we're going to celebrate top performing institutions today, and the aim of which is to learn from the best and share the information with the rest so that we can raise the water level. Generally, what we have today is a good news story. Ontario's colleges are doing better than any other building sector that we're following anywhere in North America. So this is a good news story. There are lessons to be gained. The Post-Secondary Climate Challenge is a program of the nonprofit Climate Challenge Network, and you can see the website address there. There's lots of interesting content, recordings of prior events, case studies to be found on the website. Please take a look, share them. We make them publicly available because we are genuinely trying to make a difference. Next slide, please. So getting to our agenda, there's a flow to the program, the agenda running today. We want to start with the why, and we categorize the why. Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? Why is this important? Around the three simple words. There's urgency to it, there's opportunity, there's responsibility. We want to look back over the past 3 years. We track actual energy savings, energy performance of Ontario's colleges on a year-by-year basis, but it's interesting to look back 3 years to pre-pandemic. How is energy use per square foot doing now compared to prior to the pandemic? And as I say, generally, we're making good progress with the sector, unlike most of the others that we work with. So we got mostly good news. We want to look and see how the 2024 report is, which is reporting on 2021 data. Who are the top performing colleges? And if everybody gets to be good, what is that achievable savings potential in emissions, in energy, and utility costs? We want to talk a bit about planning, which is, what are colleges doing? What can you do, and how do you get it done? We'll talk a bit about the cohort projects that the Post-Secondary Climate Challenge is conducting with a number of different colleges and utility companies and industry players at the moment. And the highlight of these sessions is always the panel discussion, and we're delighted with our 3 panelists who bring complementary and quite distinct perspectives to the whole area. And this is your panel as well, not just the panelists, and in particular use the Q&A function during there. And we will either pick up those questions during the conversation, or we'll follow up with answers after the event. Finally, we just want to close out with, I guess, a call to action. It's on this call, we've got colleges, we've got industry players, we've got governments, we've got utility companies. What could we all be doing starting tomorrow to make a real difference around this? So this is our plan. This is the flow of the day. Let's go to the next slide, please, if we can. And I'm never sure how much emphasis to put on this. The fact that you are taking time out of your busy schedules to be here kind of indicates the fact that everyone on this call today, they get it. 2030 is coming. 2030 are the first major emissions reduction targets that we have as a nation, and that we share with other international partners who are equally concerned about what's happening with respect to climate change, and the idea that we need to change direction, we need to make a difference. And again, 2030 is the first targets. Our belief is that if we don't make our 2030 targets, then 2040 becomes unreachable and 2050 is impossible. And the results of that, we choose our words carefully. Catastrophic ramifications. Not going to spend much time talking today. You see the pictures here. Everybody knows about fires. It's a BC reservoir on the right-hand picture there, which is rapidly drying out. Your scarcity of water leading to scarcity of food, leading to lack of employment. There are bad times coming, and it's fair to call them catastrophic. There's an argument we may have already gone beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is highly problematic. And that was to be our 2050 target. So there's work to be done. And the key message is we're going in the wrong direction right now. Generally, emissions due to buildings are climbing. They're not declining by the targets that we're looking for. And we're going to miss those goals by a wide trajectory. And the third exhortation here is, while we can think globally, we can be impressed and concerned with what the United Nations is doing, what the International Panel is doing. We can expect governments to do something. In fact, all of those organizations have limited power, limited levers to work with. And every college, every organization, every individual. This is a global crisis that we face here, and we're all in it together, and every organization has a role to play. And the argument today is that we can define a rational share of the challenge for each individual college and challenge ourselves collectively to get to those kind of target levels by 2030. So it's changing changing direction, changing the trajectory, playing our part in meeting those targets. So urgency, opportunity to contribute, and a responsibility to do that on behalf of our current generation, our next generations, and so on. So this matters to us. Clearly, you wouldn't be here if it didn't matter to you. Let's talk about what we can do about it. So the Post-Secondary Climate Challenge, again, reports every year on year savings, but we thought for this session it would be useful to look back to pre-pandemic. So what we're looking at here is weather-normalized energy reductions and emissions reductions for Ontario's colleges in 2021, looking back to 2019, looking back to the year prior to the pandemic and where we've come. Obviously, occupancy of colleges, use of colleges, space has changed over that period of time. But this is a pretty good objective indicator of, are we moving in the right direction? And the general answer is yes. Let me say one more thing about, I've always been impressed with Ontario's colleges. They show real leadership. And part of the leadership this year is, if you've attended previous sessions, we've always made a practice of celebrating the top performers, but not naming the colleges that still had work to do, that were not, that were in the lower part of the benchmark chart, where the energy was sometimes increasing, not going down. This year, it's the colleges themselves that insisted, no, name names. We want to see each other. We want to motivate each other. We want to learn from each other. And we want to share with each other. And if we don't know who's who, then how can we communicate effectively? So this is the first time looking at this. You'll have seen the full list of the colleges involved. What we're seeing here is what we refer to as tornado diagrams, except with the colleges here, we've really only got the top part, apart from natural gas, thermal energy. We've really only got the top part of the tornado, which is great news. The middle column here is electricity consumption, adjusting for weather differences, which are not significant with this group of buildings. Then over this period of time, we've averaged over this 3-year period, we've reduced by 22.1%. Ontario has a pretty clean grid, so it's only 1,700 tons of greenhouse gas emissions, but it's a lot of megawatt hours. And every college that reported showed savings. That's unheard of. I've never seen this before in all the time we've reported on multiple different building sectors. With natural gas, you see the whole tornado. So a number of colleges at the bottom, over this period of time, the gas consumption rose a little bit. And the net effect of the savings at the top, less the increases at the bottom, was an overall reduction of 13.1%, still double digit over 3 years, going, in this case, in the right direction. 4,500 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And on the left-hand side, you add the two of those together in common units of equivalent kilowatt hours, and we see our top savers. And so Humber College, we're delighted to see them at the top. We're even more delighted that Spencer is joining us on our panel later, and we're going to hear a lot about the story behind the story between those savings. But thrilled, Humber, I believe, is the largest college in Ontario. Seneca is close, and big reductions there. We'll also have Georgian College on our panel. Niagara and Mohawk colleges are both, along with Humber, are the 3 founding members of the Post-Secondary Climate Challenge. We'd love to see them at the top of the charts. I think it would be inappropriate to claim any credit for what they're doing, but it's all signs of the leaders moving in the right direction. So again, this is a great news story, and one that can be replicated by other sectors, not just the post-secondary or the higher education sector in different parts of North America. So congratulations. positive news, in this case, going in the right direction. This was actually the poorest. So for those not in Ontario, may not be aware that it's a government mandate, government regulations in Ontario that require annual reporting of data. And the 2021 data, we were unable to find the records, the information for 6 of the colleges named here. We've heard back from one of them already that the data was in fact filed. It was filed a little later, perhaps, than when we went searching for the information. But we will work with these 6 colleges to bring their data into it, and we will update the information and make that available on the Post-Secondary Climate Challenge website. In 2021, we had data inconsistencies for Canadore and Durham College. So they're not included in parts of the reporting today. And our intention will be, again, to work with them to resolve those issues. 2019 data for what we just looked at, the trends over time. George Brown College did not report, and we had data inconsistencies with Algonquin. We are in communication with all of these colleges. Our intent is to report fully on the performance of Ontario's college sector, and then share that information more broadly. And as we'll discuss later, Post-Secondary Climate Challenge is interested in extending this work to other jurisdictions and towards universities as well as college campuses as we go through here. A lot of differences, but a lot of similarities. It's interesting, again, so we showed you the overall 3-year pattern previously. When you break it down between the 3 years, there's interesting stories here. And again, this slide deck and the recording will be posted on our website in the next few days, so you don't have to write all this stuff down. But 2019 versus 18, pre-pandemic, the colleges were already making good progress on natural gas, 12% savings over 1 year across the whole college sector, just 0.6% in that particular year for electricity. And 2020, as we went into the pandemic, you see the big reductions as campuses and operations to a significant extent closed down. So you can see that, big reductions then. The interesting thing as we get into 2021, when things are going a bit more back to normal, is gas consumption continues to improve. That is great news. That's where most of Ontario's greenhouse gas emissions are. The electricity bounced back a little bit. That's normal. Whole sections of lighting, fans, equipment were shut down during the COVID period. It's bouncing back a little bit, but nothing like as much as we'd expected. So this story, we always study it, we look at it, and that 913 tons of emissions reduction in 21 will go up substantially when we collect and process the data from the other colleges. So thousands of tons a year. This is good news, good work. Thank you. Congratulations. So let's look at the top performers. The analysis by which we look at the energy use per square foot, adjust for weather differences, adjust for different space types, adjust for different heating system types. All of that is documented in our white paper, which is up on our website, last updated in November 2022. But it's a transparent process. It's rational. If somebody has suggestions on better ways to do it, we're all ears. We're happy. But looking to be able to report on whole sector performance is fundamental to Climate Challenge Network's programs. The targets that we look at are based on top quartile for different campus types, different college types, but we're looking to get everybody to the top quartile, not to be as good as the best in each area, just to be at the top quartile level, which we've found over 20 years of doing this is readily attainable. If we run what we've got well, and we do logical, cost-effective retrofits and upgrades to building systems. So we're not talking bleeding edge, we're not talking about massive investment here. If we just run what we've got well, these targets are what's attainable. Again, the methodology is documented. We're absolutely welcome comments and critique, but that's the basis of these numbers. And if we start by looking at benchmarking, you find the other interesting thing about this group is that they're clustered fairly closely together. So this is energy per square foot. In this case, we haven't weather normalized it. We do that at the energy target setting stage. But again, intriguingly, we don't find the northern colleges to be, we don't find much correlation between whether the college is in the north or south of the province in terms of where their rankings are right now. So each one of these you can see is a college. The blue is the electricity consumption per square foot. The green is the thermal energy, mostly natural gas consumption. And you can see the breaks there. And Algonquin College has its combined heat and power plant, so its electricity use is lower. Every college has a story to tell. And what we're really enjoying is as colleges join the post-secondary challenge, they share more data with us and we can draw more meaning out of what these numbers are actually saying. But the range of energy use intensities for those calling in from south of the border, multiply these numbers by 3.412 and you've got about kBT use per square foot. So that's the range of energy use in 2021. And then when we make the adjustments that we've outlined in the white paper and compare that energy use, the gas with the top quartile targets, the electricity with the top quartile electric targets, when we compare these, this is where we wind up in terms of this is how much each of the colleges can individually save. And you can see in some of the, in Conestoga and Humber at the top of this chart. So these are our top performers. I kind of forgot the virtual drum roll here, but this is a big deal. So as of 2021 data, Conestoga is, we are ranking Conestoga College as the most energy efficient. Conestoga's has spoken at these webinars before. This is not something new. They've been close to the top of the chart for a period of time. You see Humber College has joined them there, and you see the rest of the colleges lined up. Again, the blue bars are the electricity savings potential for meeting top quartile. The green bars are the thermal energy savings potential. You see in the box the big numbers. At the moment, we only have 25.5 million square feet of colleges reporting. When we add the rest, that number goes up into the 30s of millions. But you see the target savings in terms of natural gas, in terms of electricity, in terms of utility cost savings at $7.8 million a year. We're looking at a potential for 12,800 tons of greenhouse gas emissions if all of this savings potential is met. And today's webinar, I guess, is setting the challenge to say, we know of no good reason why these numbers can't be achieved by 2030. And that's the challenge that we're putting out today. Let's make it happen. And with the panel, we wish to discuss, what does that look like? How do we make this work? But here's the savings potential. Again, congratulations to our top performers, and we look forward to continuing to work with those with bigger savings potential. Let's make it happen, and let's make it happen sooner rather than later. So naming names, here they are. So the overall rankings, Conestoga, Humber, Fanshawe, Seneca, and Mohawk. And congratulations to them. We separate them by their own rankings between small, medium, and large colleges. You see the rankings there. And again, we're happy to see our members in this group, our current members, and we're happy to see our panelists today within these groups. We have lots to share. We've got stories to tell. Let's tell them as clearly as we can and help each other get to where we need to go. So having the idea of a target, of a goal, of a collective goal, as well as individual college goals, it needs a plan. And when we get to the panel discussion, we're going to talk a lot about planning. Planning and decision making and goal setting and organizational alignment, all of these things. But the starting point is, again, my belief is nobody would be on this call today if you didn't already believe this, but we have to make the statement anyway. The commitment to meeting your post-secondary climate challenge targets, to first understanding them, if they seem reasonable to you, categorizing those as being your fair share. It's probably the most newly used term that we hear today. Is we know we've got to play our parts with bending the curve, with emissions reductions, but how much is our fair share? I get asked this by private sector corporations, by all kinds of public sector groups. What's my fair share? How much of this should I take responsibility for? And we're saying we've tried to establish that through this target setting, that those numbers are reasonable and we think are attainable. And doing so is fiscally responsible. Every plan that we've looked at is cash positive within 10 years. In other words, you'll spend less money by doing this than by business as usual. The leadership by example matters. The colleges in Ontario are especially good at this. They're outspoken. They stand up and talk about it, but they show results. And what we're showing you today will be inspirational for other building sectors that are struggling with the same thing. And our reality is that while the governments can't solve this problem, they're going to be active, and there will be regulations, and there will be fines, and there will be taxes. However, Canada's federal election turns out, this is not going away, and future-proofing is a good idea. So getting ahead of the curve. So these are the three reasons we hear most commonly from people saying this is why we need to get on with this and do our fair share. The other thing we always want to put out there is that this is not complicated. Like, we're not talking about nuclear fusion or burying carbon under the Cascadia Shelf or anything. All of this we know how to do. We know how to apply building automation systems. We'll talk some more about that in a moment. There's a cohort project going on within our program right now to say, how do we get the best out of that? But a majority of savings come from operational improvements. It's remarkable how much of North America's goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in commercial and institutional buildings is related to simply turn stuff off when we don't need it. So scheduling is a big deal. Looking during unoccupied periods at how much energy is still being used when there's nobody in the building. Not enough is still being done around testing our hydronic systems, our air handling systems, rebalancing them, making them work the way they're originally intended. And we can do a lot to try to intervene in systems and make no progress until we get back to fundamentals. If the system's not doing what it's supposed to do, you can't improve it. The cost-effective retrofits, not that many of them, looking at boiler plants, looking at variable frequency drives, looking at LED lighting. All of these things we know how to do. It's just a matter of doing them in a systematic, organized way. And all of our work today, and you're going to hear that from our panelists, is always done in the context of being ready for decarbonization, for the energy transition, which is already underway. And key elements are there. Whenever we can reduce peak heating demand, we reduce the size of the heat recovery chillers or the heat pumps that we're going to need to heat the buildings in the future. If we can reduce supply water temperatures on heating systems, we're going in the right direction, because now we're more in the range of what heat pumps can do. Our capital planning work is always looking at alternatives to like replacements. So capital planning is a big deal now, and it's never around replacing what's reached end of life. It's about what's the low carbon alternative. So these 5 headings, if everybody gets this done over the next 5 years, we will meet and exceed the targets we proposed a moment ago. Not that complicated, but certainly not easy. Organizational alignment is, in our view and our experience, the biggest single thing that gets in the way of real substantive progress. And we really want to hear the organizational challenges and opportunities from our panelists in just a moment. But organizational alignment from the top, from the board to senior management to finance to roles and responsibilities and accountabilities. Who's responsible for what? Because if nobody is responsible, nothing happens. Are we staying on top of it? Are we measuring the improvements we're trying to make? Are we taking accountability for each of them? Do we have the right internal capacity? If we can save $1 million a year, does it make sense to bring in more resources to make it happen? Do we expect enough of our service contractors? coming in. So if the organization's on side and you've got sufficient capacity, nothing can stand in your way, then we don't look at 5-year plans. We look at 5 one-year plans. So what are the reporting, what are the KPIs? And the 2030 goal then just takes care of itself. So this is kind of the stepping up to making this happen. And as a reminder, if you weren't with us last year, we're not going to do it this year, but we took a poll of the folks that were on this call last year. And the first one was, is it feasible to get to this target? And interestingly, and again, this is unique. We haven't had this kind of affirmative response from any other building sector that we worked with. 57% of colleges thought that this is very probable, and look what happened. You can see the numbers falling into place. So we found this encouraging and helpful. Next slide. And then we had questions 2 and 3, which is, what are the technical challenges? And if you look at the blue one there, it's having a good management information system, being on top of this, knowing what's actually happening. Are we, do we have the metering in place? Do we have the data available? Do we have the benchmarks? Do we have the KPIs? So the information system. The other really big one there is, look, it's operations and maintenance. How cool is that? Because it's absolutely correct. If we run what we've got well, that's the biggest part of the savings. And the other large group there is, we're not quite sure how do we integrate this transition, this energy transition, into our planning and our existing facilities. So technical challenges, but the organizational challenges for us were the far more interesting ones. A minority felt that they didn't yet have board executive commitment. People talked about having a lack of time and resources, and yet we can save millions of dollars a year. And so why can't we fill that gap? Same thing, lack of funding. Every one of these programs, these plans that we see is cash positive. So why can't we find funding? And those funding sources increasingly are out there. But you see the organizational issues that also get in the way. And this very much is the foundational thinking behind post-secondary climate challenge. All of our work and all of our planning, we take a lot of guidance from this feedback that we had 2 years ago. We'll likely repeat this poll next year. So stop there just for a second, if you could. Amandeep, could I check with you to any questions we need to address at this point?
No, you can continue.
Perfect. So collaboration is everything. And again, we'll share that as a power word that we see at the moment. Everybody has similar problems, similar challenges. It really, really matters that where we can, we work together. And that's the only reason the Post-Secondary Climate Challenge as a nonprofit was formed, to provide a forum where people can get together and address common interests, common challenges, common opportunities. And that getting together is colleges, but it's also industry, and it's also governments, and it's also utility companies. And we initiate a lot of these kind of cohort projects. So let's get to a best practice guide. Let's get to a solution. Let's share the information with everybody and move forward. Looking heavily at building automation systems and recommissioning right now, based on the feedback I showed you a moment ago. And this whole idea of what's happening in the middle of the night. There's a lot of energy used in your campuses at 2 o'clock in the morning, and only a very small part of it is students still partying. The rest of it is stuff that we leave running. Having looked at the 3 current member colleges, the middle of the night demand was between the campus, all the campuses, was 2.5 megawatts. Freeing that up means we can then be looking at electrification and storage better. So it's setting the stage for the energy transmission. And by our numbers, we can save about $500,000 a year. That work is going on right now, looking at overnight operations in each of those campuses. Both of these projects would be delighted to have more colleges join us. So as every year, there's only so much people want to listen to me, and again, we're just advisors with this. We've got with us 3 doers, Spencer and Jessica and Leo. We already showed you their credentials a moment ago. Their colleges are improving. They're ranked highly. from that, we deduce they're doing a lot of right things. And right things are what we need right now. Everybody has a story. Everybody is doing things. It's the numbers coming from your campuses that tell us which are the most effective things, which are the things we can share and we can learn from. So you see the names there, you see the titles, and again, we're honored and delighted that all three of you would join us. The way we plan to work through this, I'm asking Spencer to start off. You saw Humber's credentials, again, one of our largest colleges, one of our top performers, and the top saver over a period of time. So key questions that the panelists have been pondering, but we're interested in your questions as well from the audience, is they're only here because of the commitment their colleges have made to do this. So where does that come from? What are the drivers? Like, what's going on? So what's behind your program? What are your big whys? Does the fair share make sense to you? Is that something that you can work towards, that you have confidence that you can meet? Is it too modest? Like top quartile today will not be top quartile 3 years from now because everyone will have improved. Do we need more aggressive targets? And is there an individual or a collective role, colleges working together as well as individually? And decision making, especially want to hear from Jessica. What's Georgian College doing about new approaches to decision making, where as well as academic outcomes and finance, we're now looking at sustainability and emissions as well. But let me start with you, Spencer, and please, from the top, just can you tell us a bit of a high-level view of the Humber College story? How did you get to where you are and where you're going from here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, so this goes back a way, actually. We started on this journey in 2015, and it came from a commitment from the college strategic plan that said we were going to be a national leader in sustainable campuses. And so we got this very big high-level thing. We're like, wonder what that means. And we quickly realized that the incremental approach that we were taking to energy efficiency wasn't going to cut it. We needed something more strategic. And so we followed basically the plan you had on your slide with the various steps. We called it the Energy Master Plan. It took us a year to get through that process, but we basically took the whole college on a journey where we formed a committee, a steering committee, call it. And we had people from across the college. So we had people from finance, 2 VPs chairing it, including the academic VP. Somebody from purchasing, somebody from sustainability, the Student Federation, a whole group of people. And we had these like milestone meetings. So the first one was around benchmarking. So we compared us, not just to Ontario colleges, but best in the world. Who's doing this? And from that, we developed our goals. Like, what are our targets? Which ended up being a 50% reduction in energy per square foot on a 20-year timeline. There's a carbon goal in there, there's a financial goal in there, there's an academic goal and a water one. So we had these goals. We also did some sort of risk analysis. What would happen if we didn't do anything? And you get these lovely curves and they show very scary things happening very quickly. And you can put in your carbon pricing and, you know, various assumptions into that. And then we did some basic engineering. It's not as detailed as an energy audit, but it's to develop a roadmap for how are we going to meet that goal that we just set. And so by the time we came out the other end, we had a roadmap of what to do, roughly. We had commitment from the board for the money. We had changed the culture, right? So we're starting to get people interested in this, and everybody understood why we're doing it. We also no longer had to do payback analysis on every little project because we sold the whole thing together, one big package. That's why it's an integrated plan. So then we got going on the projects. And since then, since 2016, we've done about 30 different energy efficiency projects. It's nothing unusual. It's all the stuff that's already been on the slides. We started off with a lot of metering and controls. We did all the stuff with the operational. We did some retro commissioning, did a lot of lighting. We did some HVAC work. We put solar in. The only unusual thing is we went pretty heavy on the building envelope. So we've done probably 8 or 9 building envelope projects. I should have mentioned the other thing we looked at in the master planning project is the intersection with the deferred maintenance list. So we're trying to figure out what's already at end of life and we have to do something anyway. So let's take that opportunity to also push the energy up. So I'm at the point now where my energy list and my deferred maintenance list are pretty much the same list because we're that integrated. We set standards for new builds so that at least we weren't making the problem any worse when we added more square footage. And we started working through it. And by the time we get to, well, last year, for example, our savings over before we started, we're using a 2014 baseline, is $2.8 million a year. So that also gives a lot of credibility to the organization. The VPs and the finance people love that. And we've made sure to measure those savings in a very transparent way. And so they have some trust that those savings are real. So that's sort of how we got here. It's not an easy journey. It's a heavy lift, but it's worked. We are down compared to our baseline of 24%. I see compared to 2019, maybe even a little more than that. I guess it depends what you're measuring against. But well, I think I'll stop there as a general overview.
That's a wonderful overview, Spencer. Thank you. And again, remind everybody this is being recorded. So, and the recording will be available to everybody to work through. Jessica, can we move on to you? There was an interesting comment Spencer just made about we don't have to do all these rigorous payback analyses because we did it up front, which is part of decision making, right? What do we do and does it make sense? Can you give us a bit of an overview of what Georgian is up to around the whole decision-making framework, decision-making process, where you can weave sustainability into day-to-day and strategic decision-making?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I also just want to mention that Mahboubeh Zamani is on the line, and Mahboubeh is our energy management specialist. So Mahboubeh, jump in if I'm missing things here. So I just want to say that I don't want to start by saying that this is all new since I've come to the college, because sustainability and energy management, they were things that were happening at the college before I got there. I just think that it's we're taking a little bit of a different approach, and we're building some capacity within our team to be able to do that. So we have a similar story to Spencer. We have this high level commitment to environmental sustainability, but what does that mean and who's responsible for it when you don't have a position that's supposed to carry that out? So I think in the past, decisions were always made with the very best intentions, but there was no clear goals or targets to achieve. And so if you don't have a target to work towards, you're kind of, you're just doing things, but with no intent there. Maybe the intent is to just be better, but how much better? It's not measurable. And I think that there was a lack of good data, good quality data. And so there was no equipment inventories or event records, like when we had an outage or when equipment was replaced or if something went offline. And even some of the consumption data is just based on basic billing data, nothing very granular. We also had a very centralized decision-making structure, probably very traditional of what many institutions have, where you have your president, you have your VPs, and then you have your various departments, and those departments basically have to pitch their ideas, and then there has to be lots of buy-in for those ideas to be carried forward. So where are we now? We have more of what we would consider a decentralized decision-making process within the college. And so there is no more of these big pitches. And I mean, I think that still happens on some level for some of the very large projects. But when it comes to these sort of individual department projects, we do have some flexibility and some agility to make our own decisions for that. And I think that there's some a little bit of don't want to say freedom, but there's a little bit of opportunity there to make the best decisions around your work. And so what we've done this past year is we have engaged in what we're calling an energy visualization process, and we're using EnerLife to help us with that. And so what this process has, it's kind of evolved, I think, as we've engaged in it. But we've sort of had this mandate that Georgian College is going to be net zero, and we want to make sure that if we are going to be net zero, what does that mean to Georgian College, and what does that mean to the other people who are in the college who are going to inevitably be part of these decisions? And so we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so this process involved a cross-college consultation with various departments and people, engaging various members of the college community in what all of those people see as our energy future. And so this has really increased communication and an understanding of college practices. I mentioned in the past that we did have an energy management specialist, but it wasn't energy management in a traditional way. And so it was really troubleshooting with HVAC equipment. We now have Mahboubeh on our team, and she has been just awesome at getting better data. And so between Mahboubeh keeping all of the data clean and accurate and up to date, we're also engaging in a sub-metering project, and this is allowing us to be a little bit more granular in our data collection as well. And better data means better decisions. So I think that is a contribution to that system as well. So taking this visualization process, taking our better data, and building our team capacity is now allowing us to move into this systematic and methodical approach to decision-making for energy projects. And one of the things that we want to be really clear on when we're making decisions is who makes those decisions and who is responsible for what those outcomes are. So when we talk about like our big vision and our big goals, that's really a senior decision process that happens. I'm sure people provide lots of input into that, and we're all part of our consultation for our strategic plan. But ultimately, I'm not the one creating that strategic plan or the big vision for the college. What I am doing, though, and where it does fall into my responsibility, is to make sure that we have standards and targets in place that will help us achieve that big vision. And so Mahboubeh and I are responsible for setting those targets and the evaluation of projects that come down our way. So it's also really important to know that big ideas don't just become projects. Big ideas need to be evaluated and determined if they are an ability to be a project. Do they become a standard? Do they become a pilot? Something we test out? Or is it something that maybe we're just not quite ready for? We got to put it in the parking lot for a little bit and we'll come back to it. And then we have a team that's responsible for the implementation. So we have a whole project team, but we also have a maintenance and operations team who, if something becomes a standard or a standard practice, then it's their responsibility to carry that out on their daily operations. And what our process also allows us to do is bring in a bit of a feedback loop. And so this is where we get to contribute to the standards. The implementation team is now saying that didn't really work this time. We should probably start doing it this way, or that piece of equipment has been failing, all the time. We should probably change that. And it's an opportunity for people like Mahboubeh and myself to say to our big ideas, we can do better. We can achieve more. We can evolve this process. So what this has really turned into is our roadmap to 2050. So we're focusing on net zero commitments, and we're going to be using our ECDMs to basically map out those 5-year increments within the roadmap. And so based on this whole process, the 25 to 2030 strategic plan will include our commitments based on this process to net zero. So I just want to give a bit of an example on how some of these decisions have played in the most recent project that we're working on. So it's no secret that colleges are in a bit of a financial situation right now. And so when somebody says net zero, you instantly just hear cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And I want to just preface that our first 5 years of our plan is really an optimization first plan. And so we're renovating a building on our campus. It happens to be our oldest building on campus. It is made up of gas-fired rooftops that were actually just replaced in 2018. We get a number of occupant comfort complaints in this space. But we know that those rooftop units are going to be replaced. We know that they're going to be replaced in the next likely 10 years. And so we kind of had to shift our focus, because when you hear net zero, it's like we gotta decarbonize. We gotta decarbonize that space. And so we really I at first was focused on, let's remove these rooftop units. Let's come up with a heat pump system. We'll change the ductwork. We'll get everything in place. And you kind of have to take a step back and say, we have to replace those units anyway. We'll do it when we need to replace them. Is it actually sustainable to be on your roof right now, kicking off brand new units? Probably not. And so we made a decision to have some infiltration testing done within the space. And we are going to focus on the building envelope. You get one chance to fix that building envelope, and you get multiple chances to fix your HVAC equipment. So the focus is really on building a better envelope for that space. We went with our best, we were given some good, better, best options for insulation. We went with the best option for that. We're going to be changing the windows in there. And as a bit of a compromise on the rooftop units, we're going to have the space recommissioned. So I know net zero can throw people into a direction of instant decarbonization, but our first 5 years of our roadmap is really a optimization first plan. So I think I've taken a long-winded time to talk about decision making.
This has been very helpful, Jessica, and sets the stage nicely for Leo. You get the best spot because you get to feed on some of I made a number of notes on this. So at Cambrian, you still have a significant savings potential, the idea of a target, and is that a rational, fair share that we've laid on you there? I like the comment about better, not better enough is another one of these sayings we hear, that things can be better, but they have to be really good. Integration, standards, so a number of good ideas here. Can you weave those into where are people's heads at Cambrian, and where are you going from here? What are the biggest challenges that you're seeing lying ahead?
I looked at the question, 24% overall reduction by 2030. That's significant. So the first thought would come, well, let's dust off the resume. It's impossible to get a 24% reduction. So how do we actually move that forward? I've had some experience with breakthrough projects, and this actually falls into a breakthrough type technology. The goal is an improvement to meet an objective. And sometimes people use a burning bridge to reach that objective. We're going to shut down if we don't improve safety. We're going to shut down if we don't increase production. We're not shutting down colleges, but we do need to make improvements. So it's like breakthrough thinking, and it's about changing everything we do. And so I just listed a few things when it came to us and what we're doing. We need to understand the problem. And that's sometimes difficult as to where are we actually using the energy, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or at some other time, and where are we actually creating the carbon, and where do we want to get the reductions? And then developing the plan, we've all talked about that. And we also talked about aiming higher, aim at 50%, not 24%. It changes your thinking if you start looking at where do we want significant improvements. It changes the ability to get that plan in place. And we've all done it. Low-hanging fruit, steal with pride. We talk it's collaboration, but steal any ideas you can, any suppliers that will provide you information, consultants, steal with pride.
Shameless, yes.
Absolutely. And that's the way we work together. We need to seek management engagement and support. And the most current energy conservation demand analysis plan has management's signature on it, or they've been made aware of. And I think that's the right thing to do, because management has to have their fingerprints on the plan moving forward, because we need money, we need support, we need to make change. So it continues. Another step that we find important is communicate. It's never enough. We need to seek engagement from staff and students to reach the goals and objectives. One thing we've had to do is manage vicious circles. We get so many people, we can't do this. I had that idea 5 years ago and nobody did anything about it. And what about such and such? So managing vicious circles gets us in a bind and we can't move forward. So agree to disagree and let's move forward. And that's been helpful, because if you have that goal and that plan, you can't always stop it and retreat. We need to develop and understand metrics, and we're in the process of doing that. We're working with Enterlife to come up with some metrics, and we're doing a lot of things, but are we actually capturing everything we do? Where do we make these savings? It could be installation and a roof change. It could be changing an HVAC unit, could be building envelope. Seek consultants and suppliers where necessary. That's the only way we're going to reach goals and objectives. We don't have all the answers internally. So they have knowledge, expertise, they're subject matter experts. They can help us move forward. We have a case where we're doing a lot of work in our building automation system this year, but then when it comes to operating the building automation system, the BAS, I'm a mining engineer. How do I know what the outside temperature should be, the combination, the comfort levels? And if we're going to run things a little cooler in the winter, a little warmer in the summer, we want to make sure we're engaging and involving people. Acknowledge and celebrate success. Now, I term this as dissonance. People have something they're hanging on to, and what we need to do is change their mind. Cambrian College never, whatever the rest of that statement is, or we're never going to make our outputs and our achievements. If we give people something else to hang on to, all of a sudden we're starting to engage and enroll them. But that's what I call dissonance, giving them something else to hang on to, the good news stories. And it's important to do that. So we want to acknowledge and celebrate successes. And it could be email, it could be having a coffee, could be whatever it is, but with whatever works in your area. And it's important to acknowledge and celebrate those successes. So I just took it from a different approach. We've entertained Honeywell. We've done several projects where we've LED lights, HVAC, geothermal, building envelope, and the savings is paying for the project itself. And that's been good. But moving forward, we need to continue to make those savings. And I put the brakes on just mitigating the energy. Let's put it to a battery instead of actually fixing the problem. Where can we actually fix the problem is what we've always worked towards. Where do we get the efficiencies? And that's been what we've been hanging on to so far. And we're developed the next 5 years, but we need to develop that plan to 2050 and start reaching the outcomes as well. So that's all I had written for this one. Thank you, Ian.
Leo, thank you. And panel, wow, it's I say that this is the powerful stuff. So all three of you, thanks for your results so far. The contributions that are taking us in the right direction. Thanks for sharing, and as always, thanks for the best, which is always yet to come. So we look forward to this kind of ongoing dialogue over the coming years as all this comes together. Let's go to the next slide. We've got we're a minute over, but we're going to wrap up fairly quickly. So just closing messages to everybody on the call right now. Under the banner of taking action, working together. So Ontario's colleges, starting, as always, make the commitment. If this matters to you, which we know it does, then make the commitment as so many things. Like if it's a breakthrough project for you, make it a breakthrough project. Aim high and work towards the Sustainable Schools target. If you have a better target, let us know. We'd love to know that. for all of you from other provinces, other jurisdictions, universities, colleges, send us your data and we'd love to add it to the mix here. So we got a more comprehensive listing there. So happy to run the numbers and give you the equivalent data there. So please do reach out to us, join in. We've, from an industry standpoint, you've heard references to many of you during these panel discussions, during these conversations. You can help. Colleges, all building types, they need help. So reach out to your clients, work with them towards knowing what their target is and what can you do to help them get there. Collaboration goes across multiple directions. Again, the colleges, their industry partners, governments, utilities. And to the governments and utility companies, pick up these targets. Leo is saying aim higher. Right now, most of the government projections we see are aiming much lower. So use the empirical data, use the data from these facilities, use the experiences you're hearing from to set more ambitious targets at the government level. Look at the achievable savings potential, develop policy and programs around real data coming out of buildings, programs which really will get to the nub of what can be done and how to make it happen. And we encourage everybody, transparency, report the stuff. We're thrilled with the colleges stepping up and say, we want to be outed. You know, tell us how we're doing. We want to compare. We want to share. We need that globally. We need that in every part of society, that we share the good, we share the bad, and we work on it together. So call out, call to action for all groups represented on this call. Let's work together and make this happen. Yeah, stay in touch. I'm Ian Jarvis, the Executive Director of Climate Challenge Network. Natalie is our tireless program manager running this program. Amandeep, you've heard from many of you before, is our Director of Engineering. Technically, we're strong, organizationally, we're strong. We're absolutely committed to doing whatever we can to help you move towards these kind of targets and change direction. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for being here. We hope you found this helpful and have a wonderful day.